Hey guys, we're back with the next episode of Sryth, our fantasy text-based RPG. Thanks so much for hanging out and joining me and watching me play these awesome games. Last time we were in Hawklor doing the adventures there, so we're just going to continue to do that until we get through them. So we're going to start back here with a rough night in the stone bag. So thanks so much. Let's go. Embark. The raucous din that greets you as you stride up to the front door of the Stoneback Tavern is quite out of place for Piripor's usually well-ordered establishment. You pause for a dark timbered door and listen intently to the sound that, like a sizable crowd of drunken patrons, before taking a deep breath and stepping into the small village's favourite and only watering hold. The moment you step into the tavern, you find yourself staring out across the common room filled with what at first appears to be a large number of soldiers. After a few moments you realise that the men, each of them clad in either leather or chain, are likely mercenaries. Your best guess is that the large and unruly band of fighters are heading north toward Sryth, where they, no doubt, hope to become part of the mercenary force that has helped restore law and order in much of the notorious Riverport. Judging by the level of noise rising out of the drunken group, which you numbered around 20, the overall crudeness of their behaviour, you're certain that it won't be long until a small disaster erupts in the midst of the common room. Suddenly, you become aware of a figure approaching from your left. You turn to find Cornerin, the head of the Hawklor's militia, striding up to you with a look of extreme relief on his face. Cornerin, hey you. Thank thee, old father, he says, exhaling sharply as he steps forward and initiates his shoulder cross. Of all the folk I'd prayed would walk through that door, a nice bit of time on your part, Alison. You ask Cornerin about the large and unruly gathering of man. He confirms your suspicion. He tells you that they are indeed mercenaries heading for Sryth, and at the better part of the afternoon they've been camped out in the tavern. So far nothing's come of it, he says, casting a wary eye across the room. They've been swilling, but they've been paying up. Nothing broke out yet. No one's hurt. Of course, it's only a matter of time. Old Piripor, not one to turn away patrons who's free with his gold, mind, is a bit tired of the lot, though. I'm not afraid to try and move them out at his word, but I'd be happy to know that you'd be at my side if you'd be so kind. Sure. Conrad nods and tells you that he's going to go and have a word with Piripor. You meet just inside the door, your eyes fixed on the loud and increasingly volatile situation brewing in the crowded common room. When Conrad returns, he tells you that Piripor has just told him that the mercenaries have stopped paying for their ale. He's been collecting it from that ornery fellow over there, says Connerin, nodding in the direction of a particularly brutal-looking man, clad only in leather breeches and a red cloth shirt. He's the leader of this crew, and either his gold's run out, or his bravado has grown. Suddenly, the man Connerin, as pointing out to you, stands up and hurls hail of curses at Piripor from across the room, demanding more ale. The men in his company roared with laughter, and several of them tossed their flagons in the direction of the fireplace. The leader, feeding off the approval of his belligerents, has elicited from his man, is about to shout something else at Piripor when he suddenly falls silent and turns to his right. There, standing at the edge of the table, are you and Connerin. Connerin is about to speak when your unwavering voice sounds above the din that fills the common room, and you politely but firmly ask the mercenary captain to take his men and leave. I'd like you to take your men and leave, if you know it's good for you. Request is first met with silence, then branch of the man. The mercenary smirks and shakes his head. You're quite right, of course, he says, nodding. We're finishing, lads. Get the horses moving out. He glances at Connerin, whose grim stare is still fixed on the man standing in front of you. He is for any trouble, he says, and he produces a cloth pouch. Jocelyn table. Now, if you'll be so kind as to beside, we'll be on our way, friends. As the mercenaries band begin to file at the tavern, the leader who steps in front of you on his way to the door suddenly turns and throws a swift punch at Connerin. An expected and well-placed blow catches Connerin squarely in the jaw and sends him to the floor in a heap. With a surprise, speedy agility, the leader draws a broadsword and spins to face you as his men, many of them calling for your blood, rush back toward the common room and form a deep ring around the impending confrontation. Just a quick lesson, he says, turning the flat of the blade towards you. I'll try not to leave more than a few marks. Alright, we don't use diplomacy often, so let's go with that one. It only takes a few moments for you to employ your impressive array of diplomatic skills and effectively diffuse this escalating situation. This is how I would. Listen, maybe you don't know who I am. I'm Alison. I'm a well-known adventurer around here, and I've slain giants, ogres, goblins, wraiths, skeletons, bears, troubadours, shadow creatures, merkmen. Nothing that has stood against me has won. So do you really want to fight? Because maybe I'm feeling in a killing mood today. Tell me that. Do you really want to fight? Not only do you manage to get the mercenaries to hand over the gold, the El Pierpont, but you also convince the brazen sword-wielding leaders to Sryth his weapon and help Conorin regain his feet. The mercenary captain apologized to you, Pierpont, and Conorin before turning and leading his stunned crew out of the tavern. I thought not. Have a good day, sir. You are certainly a most amazing lady, says Pierpont, striding up and slapping you on the shoulder. The tavern keeper runs his broad hand across his face and sighs, obviously really that the mercenaries are now gone. The less favourable outcome has been avoided. Well, maybe they'll mind themselves a bit more from here on out, says Conorin, wincing as he stroked his dodge. I will say, though, that their captain has a fairly decent fist. I'd like to have that moment back, though. He might not be so lucky a second time. With the mercenaries gone, the stone-backed common room now completely empty, you meander to the fire and take up residence on the table just left of the hearth. Conorin, still nursing his tender jaw, follows at you and drops himself heavily into a chair. Pierpont arrives at the table a few moments later, bearing 2 frothing flagons of thick, bitter ale. To think the entire room full of thirsty patrons for the likes of you two. I'll trade an entire room, he says, smirking and sit down. Oh well, they've had much sense for less business, you know. But the brew, on the other hand, now that's my true domain. Hold off on that for just a minute. I'll fetch one for myself and join you. Well, what can be said, says Conorin as Pierpont strides off toward the castle in the back of the tavern. It's an odd and rough night in the old Stoneback. Yep. See, not so hard one. Finally use some diplomacy. Bruh. They've added something. I was going to do the Hunter Man next, so I'm going to do that before these things. Embark, the Hunter Man. While passing through Hawklor on a bright afternoon in late autumn, you meet a border ranger heading south along the wide road leaving the village. The red-bearded man introduces himself as Tunny and tells you that he's running down an Arcane spy that he pursued all the way from Talinas. It's been a long 3 months since he slipped through our hands in the capital, he says, sighing. I'd be glad to have him over at the back of my horse with the walls of Talinas inside. It's been a bad bit of business, this whole affair. We can introduce yourself to the ranger. He tells you that he knows all about you and that he's honoured to have met you. You've earned yourself quite a name in these parts, he said. I wonder if you wouldn't mind bothering to lend a hand in this small task. I don't particularly fancy the thought of having to bring down a man of my own. This sort of thing ought to be just your sort of fun, eh? You've asked Tinu to let you know more about the man he's hunting. He tells you that his name is Thinfoot, and that he's an arcane spy who's long been sought across North Broadlands. Arcane spies are thieves who specialise in stealing all manner of arcanum from mages. In most cases, an arcane spy will be acting on behalf of another mage, although there are some who operate independently and sell their ill-gotten plunderings to anyone willing to meet their price. The profession of arcane spies is ancient and highly despised within the magic community. Still, despite their outward aversion to the profession, many mages still employ the services of a skilled arcane spy from time to time, although none would ever admit to it. On top of being expert thieves, arcane spies are also experts in the realm of arcana. Okay. Seems this last caper of his sent everyone walking, so that he pilfered some sort of iron skull from a mage whose name I hadn't been told, but who everyone says seems more than a bit timid to cross. We captured a slippery thief in the forest outside Talinas, but he darted out of my hands in the city. Though he hasn't won us favour with the king, or with whoever his stolen skull belongs to. A bad time of it is what we all had. And it tells you that the rest of his men, 7 in all, have headed to Trithik, while you remain in the Heart Hills, followed up on several sightings that seem to indicate the elusive rogue was moving through this area. I'd just about given up on it and turned to follow after my men when I heard a stranger skulking about the woods south of this village. And that this morning Tinu searched the woods and found an old cabin not far from the village centre that shows signs of recent habitation. He tells you that it was abandoned, but that he decided to return to town and check it again later. Certain that he would last caught up with the fugitive. I've no doubt he would choose a place like that to hide away through the winter and then set off with the spring thought, and that, my friend, is where I'm headed off now. So, are you up for what could be a small bit of an adventure? You nod and the ranger smiles. Well then, let's go and have it, he says. About miles south of Hawklor, Tinu dismounts and tethers his horse to the small tree in the edge of the road. Following behind the border ranger, you move east to the thick of the forest, treading carefully through the bramble and bracking the claws at your legs for the midst of the dense undergrowth. There it is, says Tanu. stopping in the back of the gnarled patch of laurel. He points to the east and following your finger, you gaze comes resting in the dilapidated cabin less than 40 yards away. Smoke out of the chimney. He's in there to be sure. Suddenly the sound of soft footfalls in the north startles you. Both you and Tinu spin your heads in the direction of the sound and watch with bated breath as a dark-haired, middle-aged man guards in the soft leather tunic moves stealthily in the woods toward the cabin. And here he is, says Tinu, grinning. The fox returns to his inn. He's a dangerous one, Allison, despite his appearance. I don't believe him to be murderers, but few indeed are the cornet rogues who won't turn the blade to carve a path to freedom. The two of you watch as Thinfoot reaches the cabin, steps inside and closes the door behind him. One of us needs to go in there. The other wait out here and try to nab him. He should escape. How do you see it? I'll stand watch. As Tinu proceeds toward the cabin, moves stealthily through the dense undergrowth. It surrounds the hovel. You turn up position towards where 30 yards from the dilapidated structure. Crouched in the thin ground, you watch and wait, determined that if the fugitive should escape. Yeah, because he's expecting Tinu. He's not expecting me. He still have to contend with you. Tinu draws near the hut and skirts around the right edge of it and disappears around the back of the cabin. Moments later, the crash of the door being forcefully driven in is followed by angry shouts, the unmistakable sound of a struggle. You about to leap to your feet, rush in the cabin to the end of the border edge, where suddenly the door flies open and the fugitive notices Thinfoot dashes out, moving with a bounding strides in your direction. With bated breath, you remain crouched, preparing to spring at him as he passes. Success. You spring from your crouched position and tackle the fleeing arcane spy. Thinfoot struggles briefly, but you manage to hold him down. I don't have what you seek, he gasps. He squirms to free himself from the grip. I tell you, I don't have it. I give this call to a goblin chief, and that's the truth of it. I beg. Let me go. A gallows awaits me until Linus. If the ranger gets his hand on me, I don't know what you seek. Have mercy on me. It's a fateful decision, you guys. I think maybe it'll come in handy for me later to let him go. Thinfoot thanks you and tells you that you'll not regret your decision. I'll find a way to make it even between us, he says. He turns to listen towards disappearing matter of seconds. Tinu measuring the cabin, his face bearing two long stripes. Marks from the struggle with Thinfoot and moves up to you. He turns the border range of the arcane spike up past you and escapes the noise. He nods in response. You got the best of me in there, said Tinu, shaking his head. I'd like to have another go at him, but because you lost that chance. The other two of you make a thorough search of the immediate area, but attempt no sign of elusive fugitive. You look like the Thinfoot is now long gone. Tend to see why you manage yet to land in our hands. Pursuing him further is no use. We'd have more luck snaring a fox than catching Mefty's taking flight. Tinu retrieves his horse and the two of you make a bold way back to Hawklor, and he tells you that he will return to Linus no one of Thinfoot's escaping. Also see the fugitive story about no longer possessing the ice will means that he will no longer be actively pursued. He escaped justice for now, he says, but he won't be able to run forever. He's wanted for far more than just his business with the Iron School. Outside the Stoneback Tavern, the border ranger bids you farewell and climbs on the back of his steed as he prepares to begin the long journey to Linus. You thank she for the final time and rides off north outside the village. As you turn and make your way to the tavern, you find yourself wondering what has become of the missing Iron Skull. Will there be another quest about finding it? Let's see then. Back down to 3. I'm thinking of the rope. The rope quest is a bit silly. So is the underfoot. I think maybe I want to start the giant quest. I think that'll be too long for this. So let's just do the end of the rope. Do scaled. So begins the end of your rope, standing just over your shoulder as you catch him. Poke at the bed of glowing embers in the hearth. Pirapor, the Stoneback's beloved tavern keeper, enthusiastically and somewhat unnecessarily recounts the performance just given by the old grey-bearded man who surely bartered with Pirapor, standing an hour's worth of his simple but entertaining tricks of a meal and 2 flagons of ale, as well received by the handful of patrons lingering about the tavern's common room on this overcast afternoon in early summer. I don't know which I like best, says Pirapor, turning to cast an annoyed look at the two men taking note of a small leak in the roof. His chair's trick or his rope trick, both were astounding. Of course, I'm glad he stopped by. How was to pass away a grey day like this? If you'd like to know the truth, Allison, I'd have parted with a few more ales if you'd bargained harder. While fondly recalling the trick to his final act, where the twirling and looping length of the rope seemed to take on life of his own, you saw to spot the very rope in question coiled up in the far corner. Can you imagine him leaving that behind? Asked Peerpaw, who apparently has also just taken notice of the rope. He's only just left a few minutes ago. Perhaps you're kind enough to catch up with him. Sure, I'll be glad to have it back. There'll be ale waiting for you when you get back mine. Not willing to turn down Peerpaw's offer, though you determined to hold him to his word. Your head was snatched with the rope. Crossing the common room, you glanced out the half-open door and up at the slow churning ceiling of deep grey clouds. A cool breath of air slips into the tavern and rushes up to meet you, leaving you hoping that you can return the rope and be back inside before the onset of the impending storm. As you approach the rope, the length of braided fibers begin to twitch, a listening gasp from Peerpaw, who immediately falls back several feet. Without further warning, the rope suddenly rises into the air and twists its top end into a large loop. Then, moving with unnerving swiftness, the rope streaks towards you and maneuvering to place the loop over your head. Twisting to the side and ducking down, you nearly dodge the rope's attempt to cast its loop in over your head. You instinctively assume a defensive stand. The enchanted rope swiftly draws up in front of you, opposite end now lashing the air like a whip. With Peerpaw and the other patrons standing back to defiantly prepare to engage the floating minutes alone. We're fighting a rope. It's ridiculous. Kill it. You step back from the test remains of the enchanted rope. The sinister strand, now in several pieces, lies in a frayed heap. There's no longer any sign of movement for the rope. Oh, you're right. Did you get near that? Don't get near that thing. Let's just leave the pieces there and we'll... The tavern door flies open. The trickster, his long grey beard and fanciful attire soaked by the steady rain now falling, steps into the tavern, wiping the water off his face as he curses to turn in the weather. Before you and Peerpaw can say anything about the rope which lies in several frayed pieces on the floor at your feet, the old man rushes up where you stand, ineffectively. Pushing aside the trick, stoops down and scoops up the tattered piece of his enchanted rope. With tears welling in his eyes, he looks up and casts an accusatory gaze at both you and Peerpaw. You simply explain to him what's in place, but he wouldn't hear none of it. To think of it! The savagery! He cries. I did find something in mind from in moments, and this is what comes of it? You'll answer for this, all within the sounds of my voice. You'll answer for it. The old man takes leave, but suddenly spins around to face you. I won't ever forget this, not ever. Can't help but wonder how it is he knows you're responsible for the rope's untimely demise. The trickster still clutching the remains of his precious rope, but as a curse on all present, and promptly storms out the tavern, not bothering to close the door behind you. The few lingering patrons seem to pay no mind to his toothless threat, and quickly returns to their previous affairs. Less than a minute after his blustering departure, the din of Stoneback's common room again settles into low, soothing murmur of friendly conversation. Well, an end has come to it, that much we know for sure, says Peerpaw, shaking his head as he moves over to close the door left behind, opened by the departing trickster. I must say, though, Alison, I don't think I'll ever look at another piece of rope quite the same way again. As you retake your seat at the table close to the hearth, Peerpaw sits himself down opposite you, his large hand surrounding a steaming bowl of paler. He raises a mug and nods, salutes you with a simple gesture before gently sipping a faithful brew from that fills the vessel. You're about to inquire about the ale you were promised, figuring you've earned at least that much for your tussle with the enchanted rope, but before spoken a single word, Peerpaw waves his hand, and the young man hovers over with the frothing flagon and the tavern's best. The tavern keep nods at you and then winks. Might just help to ward away the chill of a rainy day. Rainy, rotten day. It's almost over though, and there's always a chance we'll see the sun tomorrow. Well, I mean, we might as well do underfoot and then leave the giants for the next one. Please, there must be absolute silence as I prepare to execute my final and most daring feat. With this bold announcement rising above the incessant din that fills the crowded common room of the Stoneback Tavern, the young trickster, his long ebony locks sweeping across his bony face, scrutinizes the face of those gathering to witness the finale to the entertaining spectacle. I've seen all of these before, says Peerpaw, the tavern's proprietor, who's taking a chair up front, right next to you. But the last one is supposedly something new. It's a right tight bunch in this place tonight too, so he'd best deliver something a bit out of the ordinary. You suddenly feel something brushing against your leg and look down and find Candle's, Peerpaw's scrawny but much loved cat circling your feet. You reach down and give the cat a quick pat on its arching back, The trickster, who is on the outside of his performance, introduces himself as Zarak, the Mysterious, announces that he is now prepared to perform an amazing feat and that he will require the participation of someone in the crowd. Go on, get up there, roars Purple, slapping you on the back and drawing every eye in the room to you. Here she is, right here, a lady to whom fear is unknown. After casting a withering glance at the tavern keeper, you slowly rise, take a mock bow to the cheering throngs of patrons, and stride up to the tricksters, eager to be done with whatever part you play in the final act of this performance. After greeting you with a deep bow, Zozarek announces that he will use his extraordinary magical powers to make you disappear. This elicits a chorus of jeers from the common room crowd, at which the young trickster only smiles. This is going to be a bit of real magic, whispers Zozarek as he turns to face you. Don't worry though, there's no harm that will come from it. The room will provide the necessary means. The trickster twists a gold ring fitted onto his right index finger. And now, friends, he says in a loud, clear voice before you can even attempt to ask him for more details about the impending trick. Say farewell to this brave lady, at least the next few moments, as I will now endeavour to make her vanish right before your astonished eyes. That warning, a thick column of white smoke rises up from Zazarek's feet, swiftly enveloping both you and the trickster. Just remain still, whispers to you that the cloud of smoke that now obscures him. Have you back to your rightful size in just a few moments. Uh-oh. A strange sensation washes over you, and for a moment you feel as you might lose consciousness. The sensation swiftly fades, but as a cloud of red smoke begins to clear, you gaze about your surroundings, and the last spoken by the trickster echoes through your mind. Have you back to your rightful size in just a few moments. Standing before you, taller than a mountain giant, is Zazarak. With panic setting in, you cast your gaze around the tavern, only to realize, much to your horror, that everything within sight, people and objects, are all gigantic. As promised in the fleeting moments before the execution of his final act, the creature has somehow shrunk you. As you struggle to save the debilitating effects of panic, you quickly estimate, based on your proportional size to objects around you, that you're now no more than 2 inches tall. Your heart sinks and anger wells up within you as a rumbling voice of Zazarek announces that something has gone terribly wrong. For a moment, you believe that his words were meant to elicit a reaction from the spectators. When you can't settle the fearful, horrified expression spread across his face, you realize that it all is not right. Danger inherent in your newfound state only takes moments to become apparent. In an instant, the common room is thrown into an uproar of noise and activity. People shrieks to his feet and angrily demands that Zazarek makes you reappear. He dives to the right, only narrowly avoiding being crushed beneath the sole of the tavern keeper's worn leather boot as he steps forward to add a blow to his vehement requests. The din is deafening. Shouts, curses, and accusations fill the air like the rumble of thunder, and you're forced to dodge the footfalls of the tavern's patrons as they rush forward to join in Purple's angry protest, realizing that once that it will only be a matter of time before you meet an untimely and gruesome demise. On foot, you dash across the uneven floor timbers, heading for a dark, sizable openings at the base of the wall at the corner. Navigating the common room floor proves to be no easy task. At every step, you find yourself dodging a footfall, or the moving leg of a chair, as patrons push back from their seats and rush over to examine the spot where they last stood. And then she dodges the many moving perils that surround you as you move closer and closer to the opening in the base of the wall. Continue to scurry across the common room floor, desperately seeking to reach the sizable openings at the base of the wall, the corner, all around you, moving chair legs and stomping feet of tavern patrons. Make each step more perilous than the last. You draw closer to the wall of the wall. Yay! You manage to dodge many move perils that surround you as you move closer and closer to the opening at the base of the wall. Yep, that's the same, so we'll just keep doing it. Oh no! You move swiftly toward the opening at the base of the wall when you struck from behind by a sliding chair leg. Despite being knocked down from force of impact, you stagger to your feet and quickly continue to dash across the perilous expanse. Yes! These say the same thing until I get to the wall. So now I'm going to keep reading them. Hey, you reach the opening at the base of the wall and quickly duck into the dark hole, thankfully momentarily removed from the deadly common room stampede. There are many voices for the common room before a deafening, unintelligible din. Despite your inability to focus on any lone voice and the ear-shattering cacophony, you sense the harsh accusation being levelled at Zazarek. The trickster is finding himself hard-pressed to offer up an acceptable defence. The ears ringing, you retreat further into the shadowy space at the base of the wall, seeking just a moment's reprieve from the incessant howl. It is that moment you realise you made a grave mistake. Sounding something heavy sliding across the common room floor just outside the hole, retreated into fierce dread before you reach an opening. It disappears, leaving you into total darkness now, above the hole which through which you entered is a thick leg of one of Pinnacle's better chairs. The impossible heavy chair leg now spanning the entirety of the opening. Going back through the hole is not an option. Moments later, your light source flares to life, revealing that you're in a hollow space between the common room wall and wall on a tavern's back room. Despite a growing sense of desperation, you resolve to find your way out of your current predicament. And back into the common room. Only then you realize that will there be a chance that Zazarak can return you to full size. You're standing just to the east of the hole through which you entered. The chair leg that is pressed against the opening is still in place, blocking what would have been your easiest route of escape. Chunks of stones, splittering fragments of wood, and protruding blunted ends of nails serve to reveal the only movement you might attempt along the makeshift corridor will prove to be both slow and treacherous. Alright, let's go. Make your way through the narrow passage between two walls. Chunks of stone. Yes, it's slow and treacherous, I got it. So that says the same. I'm gonna reread the same thing. Alright, let's go north first. Reach the end of the debris-choked passageway, and you're about to turn back when suddenly a deep boom that clings to the edge of the corridor begins to churn with activity. You watch with growing horror as a swarm of giant mice emerge from the shadow to fill the narrow tunnel, and tinkly retreat several yards from the passage into the writhing tide of vermin surges in your direction. 10 mice. Let's leave. I have no desire to fight mice. They don't come after me, so let's just keep going. The passage ends at a tall pile of debris that rise to meet the threshold of another makeshift tunnel above. But climbing over the heap of splintered wood and crumbling stone, you can easily reach a new section of the passage, suddenly startled by the sound of movement from somewhere in the base of the debris piles. You watch in horror as a massive cockroach emerges from the gloom and moves swiftly in your direction. Gross. It's a large cockroach. You step back from the remains of fearsome creatures for the next several moments, catching your breath and checking over your equipment. Yes, let's climb up. We don't want to lose our footing. Standing on the eastern end of the narrow makeshift debris-choked tunnel. To the east, the passage opens into the top of a stone. Staring down. Yeah, let's keep going. Okay, we go south. You freeze in your tracks. Dark shapes loom out of the shadows ahead, to much your horror as a massive mouse scurries into the pool of light. The behemoth-sized rodent rushes forward to attack when you realize the creature faces only gigantic. You shrink a state, facing the encroaching monstrosity is a terrifying proposition. This place is disgusting. Cockroaches, mouse, rats. What's this way? Let's kill the rat, yes. Climb up. And let's go west. This way, that's straight. Nah, we don't need rats. Go south then. You stand in the southern end of a narrow makeshift tunnel that runs just inside the base of Stoneback's common room wall. A pile of splintered wood and crumbling rocks lies at the end of the passage. Your eyes drift upward from the heap of debris and you spot a bright patch of flickering light stabbing through the glow far above. You realize that once the patch of light is a small opening in the wall that must lead into the common room. The sound of thundering voices sails through the narrow fissure. You believe that if you somehow reach the opening, you might easily escape from the shadowy, perilous lair. The walls here riddled with bent, blunted ends of iron nails and piles of cracked stone and warped wood seem to really let themselves to climbing. Still, the opening is far above, and far from any significant height, and there might easily prove fatal. Let's see telekinesis. Some of the power of telekinesis evolves on the ground at your feet. You project a powerful but controlled blast of telekinetic energy at the floor. Slowly but steadily you begin to rise through the air toward the opening in the wall far above. So, can fly with telekinesis. After nearly After nearly a minute, you've arrived at an narrow ledge just before the light field opening. You quickly step into the sturdy wooden outcropping. Standing in the wooden outcropping just before the light field opening that leads out onto what you realise is the mantle above the tavern's fireplace, you can hear the roar of voices from the common room. It seems that a frantic search for you has not abated. Realising that lingering within the wall will invite further danger, you step out from the openings into a broad, somewhat cluttered mantle and gain an immediate view of the bustle that fills a stone back. At the far left end of the mantle, shouting for everyone to watch where they're stepping, is Pierrepoint. The tavern-keeper shakes his head and curses at two men who nearly bumped into him as they pass by, their eyes scouring the floor for any sign of you. Several patrons crowd around the trick as a young man expertly empties a flagon of ale with a well-practiced loop of his wrist. He wipes his mouth and sleeves and sigh. The patron begging him to make good in his trick and have you reappear. I've already told you I can't, he says, his wavering voice betraying his growing state of agitation. I can't bring her back unless you find her. She has to be somewhere. Oh, for sake for the awful, why did I have to do that trick? You can jump again, shouting as you move along the mantle, winding your way past candlesticks and cracked vases. You're confident that if you move close enough to Pierrepoint, you can get his attention. You've covered a considerable distance from the large strange one from behind startled you. You instinctively turn around in an effort to identify the source of sound. What greets your eyes is a sight that makes your blood run cold. Creeping along the mantle behind you, his glaring eyes fixed ravenously on you, and his massive paws landing with barely whispers. Candles, the cat, the scrawny feline, moving with precision and stealth of a beast on hunt, is swiftly closing in on you. No desire to harm Pierrepoint's beloved cat, but you realise that you find a way to defend yourself, you likely end up a snack. Alright, let's do illusions, since we don't want to hurt him. Some your power of illusion, it makes what is the perfect likeness of a scary mouse appears on your left. The legionary creature dashes across the mantle, immediately prompting candles to screech in alarm and give chase. Led by the nose, Pierrepoint turns and swiftly grabs candle. He lifts the cat to the mantle and playfully scolds her. As he's about to set down his precious feline, he suddenly whining and gasps in alarm. You've been spotted. Pierrepoint's massive hand shoots down and closes around you. Giant-sized tavern keep, his face beaming, promptly calls out the thunderous voice, promptly announced that you've been found. A swarm of commotion immediately engulfs the common room as patients rushes around the jubilant host, eager to catch a glimpse of you. In his hand, Pierrepoint pushes through the crowd and sets you down at the table, directly in front of the trickster. The young man looks at you and then at Pierrepoint as he nervously rubs his hand together. Get on, set her right. Pierrepoint angrily demands, and you'll consider yourself lucky that Alison isn't likely to hold this against you. Zazarak mumbles something and nods. He slashes up a flagon of ale, resting on his elbow, and quickly drains the half-filled vessel. He then rubs his hands together and rises from his seat. I'll need absolute quiet, he says, looking first at Pierrepoint, then at the throngs of patrons squeezing in around the edge of the table. I want to peep out of a lot of you, snarls Pierrepoint, looking first at his left and then to right. Now, if you please get to it. The trickster, his arms and hands trembling, nods and closes his eyes. He exhales and twists the gold ring fitting into his right index finger. A strange sensation washes over you. For a moment you feel as though you might lose consciousness. Everything suddenly goes black. Your eyes spring open as you wake with a start to find nearly a dozen faces staring down at you. Pierrepoint takes hold of your shoulder and raises you to a sitting position on the table you've been lying on. Much to your relief, you are once again your proper size. Honey, I shrunk the kids. A loud cheer erupts from the throngs of patrons gathered about the table. Many hands reach in to slap you on the shoulder, and several voices that voice their profound relief. The trickster Zazarak stands in front of you, sighs loudly, and claps back to a seat. A nearby patron places a full flagon in front of him, and the young man swiftly downs its frothing contents. We don't make a habit of sitting on the table, says Pierrepoint, smirking. If you please, Alison, I think you'll find the chair much more to your liking. As you take a seat at the table, Zazarak stammers an apology. You accept his apology, and the ale that follows it and tells Pierrepoint the next time he should consider taking part in the trick. Well, won't be in here, that I can promise you, he says, glaring at the trickster. I'll not see anything of the sort performed in here again. I do hope that's plain to you, my good friend. Zazarak, both of his trembling hands gripping in another full flagon, nods. Come on, Alison, calls a patron from the table behind. Where did you go once you were shrunk? I'm sure there's a story to it all. Much to the delight of the tavern's patrons and to Pierrepoint, he busied himself. Seeing a flood of patient requests for ale, you embark on a rousing account of your adventure inside the walls of Stoneback. You describe in great detail the giant creatures you encountered on your perilous trek through the wall, ending your narrative with your confrontation with candles on top of the mantle. Expression of profound horror fixes itself to Zazarak's face for the duration of your tale. At the conclusion of your account, the patrons salute you in the chorus of cheers, and for the rest of the evening, your shrunken exploits become the subjects of grand speculation out of conversation. A heated man at once finishing your account, Pierrepoint makes his way over and takes No, I haven't done it, Alison, says Paul, as he takes you aside and slaps you in the side. I don't mind any embellishing yarn myself. You've got talents for just the right words, you ask Paul what he talks about. Your adventure in the wall. You just told us all about, he says, Winnie. I know you were inside the wall, but there's no argument at that point. But the rats, mice, roaches, I know for a plain fact there isn't any of that sort of vermin roaming around here. After all, that's what I get candles for. She's good and fattened up too. I'm saying an old crawler that comes out in the cold. You glance over the hearth where candles are sitting silhouette in the dense flame, casually licking the inside of a leg. The scrawny cat rolls over and scratches out for the fire, then embarks in a furious bout of pawing grooming. It takes a better part of the hour for the excitement in the common room to give way to the more relaxed state of affairs to which the staff and patrons and its keeper are accustomed. The trickster Zazarog, who confides in you that his real name is Jod, apologizes repeatedly until you tell him quite bluntly there's no more apologies unnecessary. To lend credit to your words, you buy him a flagon of ale, which does much to improve his spirits. Might not soon to be forgotten, says Paul, laughing as he strides up and thrusts a frothing flagon into your hand. If I were you, my dear lass, I should make it a point to find someone to chronicle all the strange adventures you seem to find yourself part of. You think that you'll remember them, but once they're down as a concise tale, they will never be forgotten. Paul apologized for the evening trouble, but before you can tell him the apology is not necessary, he rushes off to break up a scuffle taking place at the table on the far side of the room. You're about to make your way over to the fire, having spotted an open seat on the left of the hearth when someone calls out your name. So you find a table of 4 men, each of them smiling, waving you over. The men, 3 of them farmers, and 1 stage driver, are 4 of the tavern's most familiar faces, and people have come to know them through your visits to the Stoneback, realizing at once you've been invited to partake in the game of Oakbok, a game of wagers, cards, and dice. You make your way over and take a seat that has been drawn up to the table for you. No sooner have you sat, prepared to engage your fellow players and contest of skill and luck, that you will likely cost you a small fortune in gold. Candles visit your feet with the swift and silent grace of which she speeches, and then the scrawny cat loosens your laps and curls up, purring softly, as she was about to eat me a second ago. Well, there you have it. Adventures left. Oh, there's one more here, so we'll do this one and probably Giants Part 1 next time. This has gone a little long than I wanted, so hey, thanks so much for joining me. You know what I'm going to say. Peace.